My attention today is on decision making. Welcome everyone. And in previous week we've been looking at business ethics. We've also looked at corporate social responsibility. And I think one of the key insights we got from those series was really to look at the complex issues that organization managers do face in an organization, especially operating in a turbulent environment. And now we're returning to the issues around decision making. We all make decisions in life. We make decisions relating to different issues, and organizations do also make decisions. But how do you actually make decisions? And some of you may argue that I don't need anybody to really tell me how I should make decision or what decision making is or what are the processes that is involved in decision making. But these are sometimes we do make decision uh, without necessarily referring to any complex analysis, without carrying out any sort of complex research or analysis to inform our decision making. But within the context of organizations, because organizations are so vast, organizations have large resources that at their disposal, and you don't want to get it wrong. So making the right decision is absolutely crucial. For example, in the situations where certain issues may actually be maybe important but not urgent, but sometimes you're confronted with situations where the issues is actually urgent but is not important, or you're confronted with the situations where it is both urgent and important, or it is not urgent and is not important. So what are the in these sort of scenarios, as a manager in an organizations, what are the things, what are the options that you have to make a decision in this type of scenario? So so my intention today is really to speak to the issue of decision making in and provide a much more thought provoking view. Bear in mind, my intention every time I do these videos, my intention is not to look at the practical applications here within its few minutes that I've got. The intention is really to challenge you. The intention is really to look at the academic thinking behind this, and of course, we then go on to look at the practical applications where we have different synchronous live sections as well. So for some of the feedback, some of you, I think a few number, maybe one or two students have contacted me to say that they would prefer maybe practical applications and organizational examples and things like that in the lectures. I do refer to those, and I will encourage you to also participate as well in the synchronous live section. So let's look at our learning outcome for today. So our learning outcome for today, obviously, I just quickly want to talk about the nature of decision making and also to look at the different styles of decision making within an organization context. I know some of you may argue that you don't necessarily need anybody to teach you how to make decisions. So of course, I also want to look at how decisions are informed and influenced by different actors within an organization context. So I will look at that. And then I will also look at um, the context of a decision making within an organization as well. So that will be the wide range of things that obviously I will be looking at today. And of course, we will try to apply a framework of decision making. So that will be the levels where I'm kind of wrapping it up and bringing it closer together. So obviously, when you hear the word decision making, so many things come to mind, and some of you are not a stranger to it. So you have issues around decisions, ideas, choice, options, goals, different things come to mind, and of course, that is where within the organizations, managers are confronted with these issues. They need to ensure that they get it right, and it is just absolutely fundamental that these managers in an organization do get it right because making the wrong decision for an organization, it can have a dramatic impact on the business continuity, on the survival of the organization, on the performance of the business, on whether the business is going to make profit or not. We've seen within the current situations, some that is ongoing with COVID-19. So many organizations that have made the wrong decisions that have been pushed out of the business because they've not actually think out of the box. They've not actually think about how they can actually reconceptualize their business ideas, how they can actually maybe remodel their mode of operations, how they can capture new markets, maybe enter new market, expand their businesses, and look at new ways of operating. So we know that the consequences of making the wrong decision in an organization can be very serious. And that's why obviously it makes sense to look at some of the underpinning issues from an organizational management point of view. So let's look at a simple exercise. So I usually do this every time that I take this particular topic. So looking at decision making exercise. So assuming you are a business risk expert of a multinational oil firm. So a large oil spill have been discovered by your organization. So, what course of actions will you take to ensure the best choice? So, in this particular scenario, so you are the business risk expert of this particular company, and and it's been discovered that actually there's a large spill that's been caused by your organization, which has been discovered. So, what are you going to do? What is the best action? What course of actions are you likely to take in this sort of scenario? So, you may want it. Do you clean up? Do you compensate? Do you protect the environment? What are the things that do you deny responsibility? Do you call for investigations? There are complex scenarios that could be at place here. So this is really to kind of pose to you that decision making in an organization is not that simple. So, and that's why this particular topic is absolutely important to look at it from an organization management point of view. So, do you call the press conference? Do you inform the local people if they are not aware yet? Do you hide the information while secretly working to clean up? What are you going to do? Do you inform the regulator? So these are a wide range of things that obviously you can do, but of course you need to be aware that um, any decision you make possibly have a very could have a detrimental impact if it's the wrong decision on the organization itself. So let's look at other things. Do you carry out proper investigation but without cleanup? So what are you going to do? What is your options here in this particular scenario? So think about that, and of course I'm just going to reflect on the exercise itself around decision making. So when the word decision making is actually mentioned within the context of organizations, what are the things that comes to mind? There are a wide range of issues that you start to look at. You start to look at alternatives. So when you make the decisions, you forego some alternatives. And then of course you start to look at the uncertainties because sometimes you're not sure of the outcome. And sometimes this could be something that can involve very high that could have a very high risk consequence for the organization as well. And at another time, sometimes because of the complex issues that organizations kind of face. So there's a wide range of factors that managers need to take into consideration. Obviously, when you start to look at decision making in an organization context, and may even relates to interpersonal issues. For example, you start to look at the case examples I cited, scenarios that I painted earlier in the previous slide, where you are a managers in an organizations and these companies are actually causing oil spillages which has polluted the environment and affected people living within that environment. Their sources of livelihood has been destroyed. And then you are representing your organizations and you've been told to not to compensate and also maybe potentially or maybe also deny the issue that has happened. So what are you going to do? So there are interpersonal issues there. You printed with the pictures of ethical dilemma. That's why decision making is absolutely important. Well, for to getting it right, because getting it wrong will have a very serious impact on the organization. So one of the things that sometimes obviously organizations see as within an organization's managers are not quite clear in terms of the direction that they could take. So sometimes you're uncertain in terms of the direction, in terms of the way to go. And we've seen that play out with these current situations with pandemic COVID-19. And then of course we've seen so many organizations are looking at what should they do, how should they maybe do their businesses, what are the things that they should be doing, what are the things that they should do. So this poses a lot of challenges for managers. But one of the ways to think about this in terms of making decisions, I think I like these ideas, and I'm going to show you in the next slide. to start to imagine things that are important, things that are urgent, things that are not important, things that are not urgent, and therefore that will give you a guide to shift your decision making to getting it right, to make the right decision at the right time. It could be very challenging, but if you're able to determine that, that could obviously pave the way for a number of issues as well for you as a manager in an organization. Now, so you look at this, so you started imagine this is what I was talking about earlier. I like this particular um, matrix. So it gave us a very clear picture to say, look at issues that are urgent, and look at it if the issue is urgent and it is also important, then you can do it. Like write article for today. If the matter is not urgent and but is important, you can decide. You can try to maybe schedule a time in the futures to do it. And of course, if the matter is urgent but it's not important, you can delegate it. And of course, the final part is if it is not urgent and it's not important, you should delete it, eliminate it, uh, because they are not going to have a beneficial impact for you as a manager in an organization. That sometimes you can apply this on a personal level, on a micro level as well. So I like this idea of urgent importance. Do it. If it is not urgent but is important, you can decide on it. If it is urgent but not important, you can delegate it. But if it is both not urgent or not important, therefore you can obviously eliminate it from your tax. So that can help to that obviously can help when you start to look at the features of decision making. And now I know a number of you we argue some we argue that this is too robotic. We can pick this out from we can pick it out. We can quickly pick it out. So what are you going to do? You said, oh, what are the features of decision making? Sometimes it's goal oriented. So you're making decisions with a goal in mind, and other time it's very pervasive. You can look at it. It to let you exercise very challenging, stimulating, a problem of choice, um, continuous processes within an organization. So these are really crucial for any managers, and it could be the basis of your actions as well. So we know that a number of points there, and every decision sometimes choice made from available alternatives. So usually this is a simple definition of what a decision is about. It's about making a choice from wide range of options that is available to you as a manager in an organization. So essentially, so decision making is pretty much like the process where you try to identify problems and opportunities and try to resolve them within the organization itself. So that's what it's going to do for you as a manager. So of course, you can start with the situations where you have a problem, you have a challenge that you need to look at. You start to examine the state of a problem. You can capture, maybe gather relevant information. So you analyze it, and you come up with. You have different options now, and then of course you can start to look at the impact of that options, and you make a decision, and therefore it goes to actions, and of course you start to look at the outcome, and the whole thing can start all over again. So this is more like um, a process where that gives you an idea in terms of these quick things that sometimes you make it quickly, without necessarily trying to figure out the steps that is involved in that particular process. So we could have within organization context. So we have categories of decisions. You can have like program decisions where situations occur quite enough. They can give you enough information where decisions to be ruled can be developed in the futures. So we know that it is often made in response to recurring organization problem. Sometimes, like organizations, there's issues maybe relating to fiscal or monetary policy, for example, interest rates, and businesses needs to respond to those. These are more like a program decisions. And all program decisions, these are very unique and very poorly defined and likely unstructured. This can happen in crisis situation like COVID-19 pandemic, for example. Most of the decisions during this period will be non-program decision. And then, of course, the key things that I mentioned earlier was issues around uh, risks, uncertainties, ambiguity, and of course, have issues of certainty as well. All the informations the decision makers needs to know, you know it, you're fully aware of it, is fully available. That means you're certain. In terms of risks, again, you're looking at decisions that have a very clear cut goals. Good information is available. Future outcomes will be associated with each alternatives are subject to chance and change. So that creates a sort of potential for that particular organization. So we could see examples in numerous cases of organizational crisis that has happened. So again, uncertainty. So managers know which goals they wish to achieve, and information or about alternative and future events is incomplete, but managers may then have to come up with a creative approach to those alternatives that is there. Ambiguity is quite the most difficult decision making situations, obviously, because it's like in the COVID-19 scenario where sometimes it's difficult for organizations to know which direction to go. So, and again, the goals to be achieved or the problem to be solved really remains unclear. So at what point what are we going to do? If there's a lockdown, we can't sell from home. Our businesses are located in an area where there are no customers. It's been shut down. What else can we do? What can we do to make money? What can we do to survive? What can we do to ensure the continuity of our organization? We just saw recently in the news that one of the UK retail giants in terms of retail companies, Debenhams, is going into liquidation. So again, this is what business environment can do to any organization at all. So no organization is immune from issues relating to a complex problem that can pose a danger to the organization's survival. Alternatives sometimes are very difficult to define in any case of these issues. And then we know that information about outcome is sometimes unavailable as well. And then I just quickly want to look at some of the conditions that affect the possibility of decision failures. We know that sometimes may be around organizational problems. So the issues I've already clarified when you're looking at uncertainties, is it low, the risks, um, the ambiguity. So that gives you wide range of options there in terms of the possibility for failures within the organization. Because if you're dealing with a very high ambiguous situation, that's very volatile situations like the so-called KUVA. KUVA is complex, uncertain, um, ambiguous, and some other very high tech volatile issues that can have a dramatic impact on the organization itself. So that can have a dramatic impact, and my business managers you need to know what to do in that regard. So, and then you start to look at program or non-program decisions, and then problems, solutions can start to emerge from there. And again, here we start to look at four phases in terms of decision-making process. So there are four phases here when you look at decision making. You can look at maybe frame the issues. So you try to consider the issues that matters. You're trying to ask the right set of questions. You're looking at wide range of options that you have relating to that particular issues right from the start. And then of course you want to gather relevant informations as well, and that is something that obviously I will encourage. You gather intelligence, you communicate insights, you try to analyze the issues after you frame it, you try to make sense of it. And then of course once you try to make sense of it, you can obviously decide, you make the decision based on the insight that has been generated. And of course you can then learn from the experience, you build knowledge base and try to improve your decision making process for future in the futures as well. So that is absolutely important in this particular context. So some of the determinants of decision making model selection was, as identified in the literature, issues around managers' personal preference sometimes. and sometimes also boils down to the issues whether the decision is programmed or not programmed, and the essence of which decision is characterized by risks, uncertainties, or ambiguities in the business environment, or the uniqueness of the decision itself. So those are some of the factors that have been put forward again, um, as some of the determinants of decision making selections when you're trying to select the right approach. So obviously, three decision-making models has been identified in the literature. There's the classical models, which is more like a rational thinking issues. There's the administrative models and also the political model. So when you look at the classical model, so it's a logical decision in the organization best economic interest. So this is about logical, rational thinking. Now you're looking at decision makers where you operate to accomplish goals that are known and agreed upon, and of course you strive for condition of certainty. You gather complete information in order to make that decision happen. You evaluate alternatives and have those criteria clearly spelled out, and that's it around decision makers being rational. I told you about rational, and use logic to arrive at a conclusion. So of course we know that obviously like the normative environment we describe how managers should and provide guideline for reaching an ID person. But I don't necessarily want to. I know you can pick this out in the textbooks as well. But I'm just going to speakly going to look at the other aspects, being the other aspect around administrative models. This is about non-program decisions that relates to uncertainty and ambiguity in the business environment, and this is very crucial as well for many managers, for many organizations, leaders to be aware of. So there are two complexes that are instrumental here. To that, there is a complex. There is the issues around what is called bounded rationalities, that people have limits or boundaries on how rational they can be. So that obviously the extensive research has been done around these particular areas, and that has a considerable implication for how managers navigate and do their things, and how managers do their work as well, and the type of decision that managers in those sort of organizations are more likely to make. The other part is the what is being referred to as the satisficing. That actually means that decision maker choose the first solutions alternative that satisfy minimal decision criteria. So again, I think the call is at the ends with with the managers in that particular organization, the top leadership, top echelons of the organization, to ensure that right decisions are actually made. The other part is also to look at the fact that most managers, most organizations, because of bureaucratic process, tends to delay in making the quick decision that try to fall back in terms of what they do. Again, so we look at administrative model. So managers make decision in difficult situations. So we know some of these things like they are really great ways. So goals in this particular context when you're looking at administrative may be very vague, and you can have this lack of consensus among managers as well. So these are really key. These are really key. So you can search for alternative. You can do all sort of things, but you depend more likely on your intuitions to look for past experience to make informed judgment. So again, you look at intuitive decision making. This is the part that I said most people will feel that there's no point talking about decision making. A number of you may already think that this particular topic, for example, is not for you because you are the smartest guy in the room, and you make the best decision all the time, and you depend sometimes a number of people use intuitive decision making. It's based on gut feelings. This is more like you using your subconsciousness, right? On the basis of experience, on the basis of values, on the basis of emotion, to arrive at a conclusion, to arrive at a certain decision. And this does not maybe rely on systematic cultural analysis like I've previously described, because here you look basing your decision on your gut feelings, and this can be derived from your experience, past experience, your dealings, and a number of factors that can generally explain that. So we know that we need to be careful in terms of that. But of course, you start to look at the political model. which is really resemble the real environment where most managers and decision makers operate. And we also know that it's useful in making non-programmed decisions as well. So that's the political one. And the final part for me is that is you start to look at decision as complex because they are complex issues. Decisions are complex issues. They can make or mar an organization. So that is absolutely essential. The final part, you start to look at some of the characteristics. You can pick that up. I've tried to differentiate them in the slide where I was explaining some of the difference between the classical political and administrative decision making models. So you can pick that part and see which one you like. So we're looking at the three decision-making philosophies, and this is split around three key points. So the first point is around decision analysis, and the second part is looking at heuristics and biases, and right, finally we'll be looking at the issues where you go with your gut. So the point of view is around decision analysis is that decisions needs to be made systematically. Even in the face of uncertainty in the business environment, you need to ensure that you use a systematic approach. So you can use decision tree to provide a framework, and you could try to analyze what is going on, make sense of that. But of course, we know that sometimes this approach obviously is ensure consistency and it is rational, and you can teach these procedures, but it doesn't always account for limit of time and data and human cognitive abilities as well. It's not properly accounted for. And then of course you start to look at when you do you use it. So to make the big decisions with long investment horizons and reliable data in oil and gas and pharmaceutical, for example, or whether to go to grad college, for example, or in negotiation and in group. So we you can use decision analysis in these sort of situations. You can use it. But when you start to look at heuristics and biases, so this is about when people make decisions under uncertain conditions and they relies on rules of thumbs or heuristics that sometimes yield reasonable judgment, but sometimes cause big error. So we know that under situations where you're trying to design better institutions, you want yourself away from dumb mistakes, and sometimes is better understand the priorities of others as well. So it is based on observed human behavior, but of course not always clear how to apply the actual decision making model itself. And the final part is the issues where you go with your goals. So the heuristics that people use to make decisions are often very effective, but you need to know keep it simple without any extraneous informations, and can be hard to know in advance when a heuristics will work or will fail. So these are really something that obviously you should be really interested in. And also the final part is around issues around the fact that you can use it in unpredictable situations. You can go with your goals with opportunities, but for learning, maybe firefighting issues around flying sports and all those sort of things, you can go with your gut feeling. So this is really important. I think maybe finally I would just be maybe in the next lectures where we'll be looking at decision making too. I will look at other theoretical issues related to this particular topic and applications to organization, to leaders in an organization. So that's something that I'm definitely going to look at. And in week 11, we wrap up with the concluding part of the lecture. So thank you so much. And don't forget, for some of you that haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, is there some of these materials I've also posted there, and extra materials are there also. So thank you so much. And I'll see you next week. So bye for now.